here we got stuff in there. You talk about destroying mosques and stuff like that, churches. Well, look, Hindus in India have destroyed 500 mosques was destroyed in Gujarat, India. Okay, and go on. How about soldier? Your fellow soldiers. One of them gets 90 years in a rape case, raping Iraqi girl. You heard about it. You heard about the barbarity when they raped that 14-year-old girl and murdered her and her whole family. Okay. I already gave the article before, my other one, in the Jerry Klein radio show, where he did a spoof to see what would Americans think if he suggested that Muslims be made to wear symbols on their clothes like the Nazis did in Germany. He was shocked that the majority of his callers agreed and said, yes, Muslims should be made to wear some type of identification on their clothes, just like the Nazis did in Nazi Germany. As I said, you people are potential Nazis. All right? Another article right here from the World Press, BBC. All right? Muslim risk discrimination increase. A report by a European Union-backed anti-racism body says the number of Islamophobic incidents in the 25 member states is on the increase. Okay, discrimination, bigotry against Muslims is on an increase. Okay? Then she went on about the terror attack thing. All right, I gave the proof already about my statistics from the FBI. Okay, showed you what the numbers were when it came to that. But you want to go international, right? Well, the reason why the United States ranks low is because the United States commits what is called state-sponsored terrorism. You see, that's why they're not. That's why they're on the low numbers, because they do what is called state-sponsored terrorism. You see, when it's done by a government, then of course they don't call that terrorism. But nonetheless, terrorism is terrorism. Okay. So let's talk about the numbers here. All right. In the book America's Greatest Hits, Land of Hypocrisy by Kenny Anderson. Here, you want to talk about terrorism? Hey, look, here we go. 3 million Vietnamese were murdered during the Vietnam War. Okay, 300,000 Japanese were massacred when they dropped the bombs. When they dropped bombs, not just to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but also in the firebombing of Tokyo. Okay, they dropped it on civilians. That's considered terrorism. To achieve a political goal, that's terrorism. When they invaded Panama to get Manuel Noriega, 3,000 Panamanian civilians were murdered. 3,000. That's about as many people were killed in 9/11. How come you didn't cry about the Panamanian civilians, huh? How come you didn't cry about the 3,000 Panamanian civilians cried, but everybody has to cry for 9/11? Interesting. Interesting hypocrisy here. I can go on and on and on. 500,000 people were killed when America was fighting against Laos. 600,000 civilians were killed in Cambodia by the U.S. bombing. My goodness. In the book, Timeline of CIA Atrocities by Steve Congas, it is reported by the year 1987, the CIA was responsible for the deaths of 6 million people. Okay, that far outweighs anything any Muslims have done. Okay, the reason why these things don't get put out there though, because again, that's state-sponsored terrorism. So of course, America comes off scot-free. Okay, so that's why it ranks low, because that's state-sponsored terrorism. And of course, them being in control of these statistics, they're not gonna make themselves look bad, right? The devil never makes himself look bad, so of course they're not gonna put those numbers up. Now after that, she goes on and reads a bunch of verses, everybody. See, this is how you know she hasn't done any real research. She's getting all her information from these weak, fake, misinforming hate sites. So she ran off a bunch of numbers. Chapter 2, 244, chapter 2, 216, chapter 3, 56, chapter 3, 151, 474, 71. Look, I looked at all of them, okay? Looked at all of them. None of them have anything to do with terrorism. I don't know how you missed that, okay? Most of these verses are talking about Muslims fighting back in self-defense. The ones you mentioned from chapter 2, did you read chapter 2, verse 190? Did you read chapter 2, verse 190 and 192 and 193? That clearly said the Muslims ought to fight back against those who fight them, to drive them out from where they drove you out from first. This is the context. The chapters that you mentioned in chapter 3, verse 356, 3151. This have to do with what was called the Battle of Uhud. Again, the Muslims were fighting in self-defense trick. This is called the Battle of Uhud, which the pagans of Quraysh, the pagans of Mecca, had started with the Muslims. So the Muslims were defending themselves again. You mentioned chapter 4, verse 74. Interesting. Guess what, everybody? The verse right after chapter 4, verse 74 clearly says that the Muslims are fighting in self-defense on behalf of people who are being oppressed, who are on behalf of men and women and children who are weak, and they're crying out for Allah to send them some help against oppressors. That's what the verse says. Why did you miss that? You know why, everybody? Because she doesn't have the real Quran in front of her. She's quoting from a website that's only giving them part of the verses out of context and not giving you the full context. So when you come across a Muslim like myself or some other Muslim who knows these things, we're going to make you look like an ass. Like I just did. Okay? This is what these verses talk about. Then you mentioned chapter 7, 191. That has nothing to do with fighting whatsoever. So I don't even know what you mentioned. Okay? You made a reference, you didn't mention it, but you made a reference to chapter 9 about fighting the so-called infidels wherever you find them. Again, what's the context? Keep reading from chapter 9, verse 1, all the way to verse 13. And you will see that, what does it say? It said, will you not fight a people who aimed at the expulsion of the messenger and they attacked you first? That's what it says, trick. So all the evidence is there. Why you missed that, I don't know. But you know why I know why you missed it? Because you're not doing no real research. You're not doing no real research. Okay? And then she went on about the demitude. The reason why I said what I said is that you gave no proof. You didn't give any proof of any of so-called. There is no example of no demitude. None of the nations that we know about have no Sharia. So we're talking about demitude. And I already read to you earlier what is the true position of the dhimmi. That means people of the covenant. That's what that means. And I already read to you what they said, what the Prophet said himself, and what Umar said about it. That doesn't sound like no discrimination to me, so you don't know what you're talking about, okay? And again, yes, apartheid is done with, Jim Crow is done with, but again, are you denying the fact that institutionalized racism still exists? Okay? I got articles right here about rise of racist violence concerns Belgium. This is from the Associated Press, written by Raf Kasser. Okay, about a gunman who went through in Belgium, started shooting up Arab people and killed an African woman. They said this is starting to be a problem, that these white teens in Belgium are rising up in racist attacks on people. We heard about what happened a few weeks ago when the Germans, that tape that the Germans made, racist German tape stirs outrage. This is by Kirsten Greishaber. This is from the Associated Press. Remember that video that came out from the German army in which when they were told to get out and act like you're killing a bunch of black people in the Bronx, America? Yeah, Here's the one about South Africa. Yes, apartheid is done, but racism still exists. Here's an article right here. South African minister clashes with farmers. What happened? The whites, because they control most of the land, even though apartheid is done, the whites still control most of the resources and the land in South Africa. And now they're starting to throw black people off their lands. You see? They're making a bunch of refugees. Here's what the article says. It says a 2005 survey estimated that between 1994 and 2004, 942,303 people were thrown off their lands. You see? By who? The former apartheid whites of South Africa. This is what is going on here. So yes, apartheid is gone, but the system, the institutionalizing of the system is still there. Okay? 942,000 people thrown, that's almost 1 million people. Black people thrown off their land in South Africa. But yeah, you people want to cry about Darfur. You see? They only cry when it's not them doing it, you see? You see what I'm saying? When they can scapegoat another group, they love to get involved. Oh, look at the people in Darfur. Look what they're doing. They didn't do anything about Rwanda. What about the Congo? Millions of people have been killed in the Congo already, but you guys don't say nothing about it. You see? This goes to show you the ethnocentric view. And her being a pawn of the ethnocentrists, she takes their own doctrine. She claims that she's a black American female, yet she supports the doctrine of these ethnocentrists so well. So well. She does it so well. They'd be proud of you, Trick. They'd be very proud of you. I'm sure they are. Okay? And there we go. All the evidence has been presented, and she's been refuted yet again. Let's see what you got next, Trick.
But you know, there's no turning back now. This is what makes me. This is what I am, Let's go.
You can hate me now,
QB,
but I won't stop. You hate me now,
I won't stop.
but I won't stop now.
Can't stop.
Cause I can't stop now.
You can hate me.
You can hate me now,
I hate you too.
but I won't stop now.
Come on.
You
Come
can
on.
hate me now, cause I can't stop now.
Come on.
You can hate me now,
You can hate me
do it
now.
now. You can hate me now.
Do it now. I told you, do it now.
Let's go.
You wanna hate me, then hate